Good afternoon and good night if you're watching this video when it's uploaded, but right now it's a good afternoon to be alive. And school week's out, yay, it's Friday, but today we're talking about music yet again, and you should expect this because I'm a music channel. It's called Music Mike. Anyway, back to it. We're talking about a band that was so great that they were considered the Canadian Beatles by many. And they were actually thought to be the Beatles by how similar they sounded. Let's check out this curious case. Klaatu, which we were talking about, and they were actually named after an alien from the day the Earth stood still, that famous film. They're actually named after it. That's a fun fact for you. Klaatu was, notice I say was, a Canadian band formed in, well, Canada. In Ontario, Toronto, Canada. You know, that general area of Canada in 1973. And they would release their first official album in 76. Of course, they would release songs, but eventually they would become an album in 76. So, what ended up happening was, I'm going to show you some of their songs in a minute. They only had 2 charting songs, and they didn't chart too high on the charts. But they did chart, so that's pretty notable. But they only had 2 charting singles. And they are literally kind of forgotten today, which I don't really like. They're a very talented group. And I'll show you the albums in a minute. Now, their albums, they only released like 4 or 5 albums during their about 8-year career since they were formed until they disbanded in 81. That's when they would actually be figured out to not be the Beatles, because nowadays, if you're just on YouTube and you go to a topic video, you just look in the description and see who made the song. But back in the day, you didn't have to write that on the label. But the one day, actually, someone actually looked into the copyright of the albums and songs, and it wasn't Paul McCartney, John Lennon, as you would think, and George Harrison and Ringo Starr. Instead, it was D. Long, John Wolschuk, and yeah, basically, not the Beatles. Oh, can't forget Terry Draper, I think. Yeah, Terry Draper. Don't forget him. You actually can find him on Facebook. I actually found the dude on Facebook, and I watched an interview of him on YouTube, and he's a pretty cool guy. You should check him out. He released some solo albums, I think, later on, but they are not known because his band kind of got to fame in the 70s, but kind of was forgotten about in the 80s moving forward. That's why they disbanded. No one wanted to hear their music anymore because the backlash was so bad when they were figured out to not be the Beatles. And yeah, eventually people got over their music, and their song Calling Occupants, which I'll play here. Planetary craft calling. Okay, and that charted number 62, and it's considered a double hit because it occurred on the same album, 347 EST from 1976, and it's basically a sun. It just has like the Mona Lisa face on the sun. That's what the album cover is. And yes, and their song Sub Rosa Subway, which I'll play here. Beach, work secretly, risking all to ride. Okay, those both charted at number 62 in 1977. And that's it. That's basically all their music accomplishments. But their albums did sell 500,000. Their first album did sell 500,000 copies when the Beatle rumor started. And since in Canada the population is significantly less, I think, so they'd only sold like 50,000 in Canada. And that's their first and second albums. I think their second album actually reached 1 million sales when it got very popular, this rumor. Anyway, it's very sad to see them go. None of them have died or anything. They've just kind of faded into obscurity. This all started from a newspaper article, which I'll show you in a minute. Here's the newspaper article that started their whole fame. Yes, this is literally what shot them from obscurity into brief fame, really, to charting success. Their albums actually charted, and just the songs on the same album, too. Two songs on the same album charted, and their first two albums were great sellers, but that's around the time when they were figured out to not be the Beatles because someone checked into the copyright of the song. And yeah, I already told you who showed up. Terry Draper, Dee Long, and John Wolfschuck. And that's very sad that they faded into obscurity, and today they're relatively unheard of until a man called Polyphonic actually talked about them, and his video has almost 2-3 million views. So that kind of got them back into sort of fame, if you'd call it, because all of his audience is watching it. Even more, like, people that don't know the channel got recommended the content. So yeah, it's pretty cool. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed, and see ya. I love y'all. Peace.